All right. Wait, so Vinny, you're telling me we don't get a Hershey's chocolate sizzle right now?
I just said I should have had walk-up music.
Yeah. I mean, come on. I would love to see
A good sizzle reel.
Yeah, I'm just sitting here thinking we've got incredible TV, we've got chocolate and candy. Thank you guys for sponsoring like every night at my house.
Yeah. This is the first time a sizzle reel's been in the data and programmatic budget, so it's a sign of the times. I've been asking for a sizzle for about 6 years. So.
I love it. Well, thank you guys for being here. We were prepping for this and talking a little bit about how it just kind of feels like this is genuinely a group that is on the phone a lot, like actually working on this together. So it feels a little bit like a work call or a meeting that everybody gets to sit in on. And I'd be worried about that being boring if it weren't Vinny and Dan here, who are really two of the people who are honestly leading this charge across our industry. And the work they're doing and that we get a chance to do with them, I think represents the times, the moment of transformation. So I'm really excited to be able to talk to you guys about this today.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, well, let's dig in. 2022, Tim talked about, was a year of incredible transformation. It's a time when every major network introduced AVOD, O&O, streaming apps, or fast channels, some combination of those. And as Tim said, following the consumer where they're going. So I'd love to just start by asking you guys to reflect a little bit and talk about how what happened in 2022 changed your approach for 2023. Dan, you want to start?
I mean, happy to say it hasn't really changed our approach, right? I mean, we've been proudly ad-supported since the acquisition of Tubi, and I feel like where a lot of our peers have been taking down subscription walls and open up ad tiers, it feels like we've got a little bit of a head start in that direction, and it's a validation of the portfolio and the direction that we set out on about 3.5, 4 years ago. So it's really continued to grow. I think I'm continuously blown away by the size of the monthly active users, the early reports of the number of streamers and the minutes spent for events like the Super Bowl. Yeah. So, even as somebody who lives and breathes this every day, it's still jaw-dropping to see the adoption and the rates and the stickiness really of the streaming environment.
And how are you thinking about making more of, and I know you've been doing it.
Yeah.
How are you continuing to think about making more of your inventory available programmatically?
I don't think it's about making anything programmatic that isn't, right? I mean, we've got programmatic capabilities everywhere. I think it comes down to there's a bunch of content that still sells on what it is and the content that it is, and we've got, well-sold sell-through rates there. It's not that programmatic isn't accessing that inventory, but the supply does not really hit the PMP deals or the marketplace deals the way that other parts of the portfolio do.
Okay.
But I think, again, we're past those steps of, do we trust programmatic? Is it quality? Yeah. Does the tech work? So, happy to say that, the last couple of years have been really validating, and this is good, it's quality, we can trust it, it's not going to bring down the app or break the stream. Any more stuff like that.
So if there ever was a wall, it feels like it's going away.
It feels like it. Definitely does.
Vinny, what about you? Reflections on 2022 going into 2023?
I mean, Dan hit a lot of good points there. When we look at content is king at the end of the day, and we have to reach everybody with a mouth at the end of the day. So I don't care how I get there. We spend a lot of time talking about how we buy versus where people are. There's the stickiness of streaming is not going to go away, but neither is some of the content being consumed on linear, whether it's live sports, news, entertainment, there are still options. So for us, how do we get ahead of that? How do we stay ahead of it is a constant thought in our building. But again, I've got a category that has 98% household penetration.
Yes.
So I want to talk to everybody.
Yes, everyone loves chocolate, except for people who are objectively wrong about chocolate. Bring us into one of our work calls a little bit.
Yeah.
Vinny, what are you asking Dan for? Like, what are you, feel free to put him on the spot a little bit, but what do you want more of when you think about going more programmatic?
Just a greater value exchange. I think that's one of the biggest conversations we continuously have. I will not, and I promise you everyone in this room, I don't start any conversation with cost. What is it going to cost me? Because that's the worst way in.
Yep.
Because then you're just devaluing the entire integration that you're trying to have with Fox or Disney or Paramount or anybody else. So we talk a lot about, control. When we think about moving things into an addressable first platform, you want more control as a marketer. I want to just make sure my dollars for the business are going as far as possible. So when I say to Dan, all I want to start is control, reach, and frequency. That's it. That's one simple way in, because again, I have to reach as many people as possible. So if I get a frequency of 30 versus a frequency of 10, but that 10 was on 3 households. That's a lot greater for me to grow share, to continually build my business. So even if you don't even start at identity first, it's just what control do I have to start building a more effective media plan?
Yes. So decisioning, frequency capping, and control. It's a really easy way to think the paradigm about controlling frequency holistically for you. Would you say that's like the first and most important thing?
Again, to reach 98% household penetration of a category, yeah. So when we look at all of our different brands, they operate differently. Not all of them are there. Reese's is Reese's. They're the beast. But if you look at some of our other portfolio, like there's 15, 20 household penetration that we have to go after. So we can think of it that way. Okay, what are the right households I have to go after? How do I use control to both go to the markets that matter most or the frequency of every household so that I'm not telling a insurance-based story over and over again, because I think we get hit with a lot of those ads constantly.
Yeah. All right, we'll leave names out of this, Vinny.
Categorically
categories. So, and that gets into the theme of this. The theme of this session is better together and thinking about using both the linear and streaming parts of the buy. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about how we act holistically and think holistically, because the consumer at the end of the day is both places. You know, when you have 98% household penetration, you've got consumers doing both, some who index more in one direction, some who index in the other. So Dan, how are you thinking about the holistic picture as we go into 2023, which is a vaster, more fragmented, but also, represents incredible opportunity that it hasn't before?
No, totally. I think, really, again, proud of our portfolio. It's really centered around live events, the linear sports package we have, live news, and then the complementary entertainment and digital portfolio. So I always think about it as kind of an ask Vinny, is it the chicken or the egg, right? You have to come in and brand and find your audience, and you have to have a starting point and a jump-off point to begin that conversation with the end consumer. I still wholeheartedly believe linear television is the best place to do that. And then everything that Vinny needs to do to continue to reach and remind people to purchase his products, I think that streaming and programmatic complements that perfectly. So, the better together of chocolate and peanut butter or whatever the next commercial is. I really feel like that's the yin and the yang of this, and we're scratching the surface. I think that's really the opportunity of getting closer with Vinny and his team, and what are the tech partners and the capabilities to understand the linear exposure, then cap that, and probably ask Vinny for more money on the digital side if he's truly looking for, 2 per household per day or something. So.
All right, well.
Just reaching 2+.
Yeah, better together. Gray jackets are better together. I just realized we're matching today. Okay, Vinny, so your turn. I mean, you're famously someone who has talked a lot about digital. You've made a lot of noise about moving everything into a more controlled and biddable and digital environment, which I am so grateful to you for, and I've enjoyed just sitting on the sidelines and cheering you on. But so we're talking better together. Is it better together?
It is.
And is there a place for linear still in your buy?
Absolutely. I mean, we've done a really good job over the last probably 12 to 18 months of streamlining what our linear buy should be. So complementing everything that we're doing in the digital environment. But it does work. We literally have to reach, there's parts of the country that aren't streaming yet, or very little, playing a role in their household. So we've got a broad portfolio of products that need to reach everybody. But it also comes at the cost of how do you do less frequency, streamline who you're buying, what partners, what's contextually relevant. But linear still plays a pretty big role in our plan. It's not as big as most. I mean, we're down to 70% digital, 30 linear. But at the end of the day, we talk about this a lot too. We spend so much time as an industry talking about linear versus streaming when it's still the same biggest screen in the house.
Yep.
So it's, for us, chocolate and peanut butter look really good on an 85-inch TV. I don't care if it was linear bar or streaming. I'm being a little aggressive there.
Coming over to your house now. I'm watching Fox at any time.
But my point is, we don't sit down, put your own consumer hat on.
Yeah.
Do you sit down at night and say, do you want to watch linear or streaming tonight? No.
Right.
What do you want to watch? Content is king at the end of the day. It's, I want to watch the next episode of Yellowstone or whatever it ends up being. It's your moment. So that prime time moment is no longer from 8 to 10.
Yeah.
It's any point of anybody's day because content is accessible everywhere.
Yeah.
So I think when we think about it, I don't care at the end of the day how it's bought. I care that we find the best outcome and the most effective reach mechanism between linear or streaming or at the end of the day, whatever show it needs to be.
Yep.
So when you use all those mechanisms together, they are better together. They complement each other really well. And the extension of what we were able to deliver in linear into digital allows us to continually build reach on top of each other.
Yeah, thanks for being so open about those numbers and about the 70-30 split. I'm going to ask you to go a click deeper, if you're comfortable, and talk a little bit more about the how. I'll bet a lot of the buyers in the audience, some of the conversations we have are kind of thinking like, yes, I would love to control more. I'd love to do more variable price deals. I'd love to do more frequency capping, but the networks aren't going to let me, or I'm not sure if I can get that much of my buy really empowered digitally or programmatically. So will you talk a little bit about your approach to things like, I don't want to get too acronym heavy here, but decisioning, variable price deals. Many of us will know this as variable price PMPs or decision PMP deals. So will you talk about your approach there and how you're thinking about, how much of that are you getting if that's what you're asking for, and how much does that factor into your buys?
It's probably our biggest part of our upfront conversations. Our team at Horizon has done a tremendous job of actually shifting us this way. And it goes back to, I just want to control reach and frequency. Literally the basics. I'm not saying I want to find the mom of 4 kids in Buffalo, New York who loves to bake with Hershey Kisses. I'm not looking for that per se. But the ability to move any of our streaming type of deals from the upfronts into, addressable, controllable, however you want to define the PMP, it's more the control and the value exchange that we're going after. So you said it, more of a price you led with, it's more of the value first. So the price isn't the reality at the end of the day, because you're paying for that person in real time. That matters most to your business. Mm-hmm. So whether it's New York or Topeka, Kansas, if that person's going to buy me, or I'm going to give them the opportunity to buy me, I want whoever is going to be closest to that moment. So as we've looked at our upfronts, the ability to control that, and I'll give a really simple example, and I won't name names because it's not the point of it, but if you do a direct deal, in some cases without control, in October or in Q4, October is this little thing called Halloween, which is our Super Bowl. It's a really important moment. Over the years, we saw 95+% of our impressions happening in the first week of October. When do you buy Halloween candy? The last week leading into it.
Yep.
So because we over-delivered in the first week, then the impressions trickle the rest of the month. Is the value there? No. When you flip-flop it and have more control over that period and do 5 to 10% trickle and then 95 at the end, it may cost more because it's getting closer into Q4. But the value exchange is greater for
so
a
you're
brand
willing
like
to pay
ours.
more for it.
We're willing to pay more if the value is there. We've talked about this constantly.
We'll talk later, Dan. Yeah.
At the end of the day, it's if we can create a new value exchange for the person, that's the most important part of our business.
I think you just answered my next question, but so Dan, Vinny is coming in saying he wants more decisioning, he wants variable price deals, he wants them to count toward his upfront commitments with you. Some buyers are wondering, will the networks let me do that? Why are you letting him do it?
We're letting him do it because he's spending more money. I mean, I think we were prepping for this. Vinny's better at the stats than I am. We can throw it back to Vinny. But I mean, we look at all the numbers across the board. And yes, there is some concern and some hesitancy in going to more of a flexible digital buy. I think, again, Leo framed it well, right? It's a futures market. You're putting money down. Vinny knows he needs to be in October. And we want to just make sure we can count on our partners throughout the year to spend their allocations. I think, programmatic and plumbing and activation at the end of the day is really just how does the ad get in front of the end consumer. But with the flexible deals and the negotiations around it, we've moved that way with Hershey, and it's, I think, benefited both sides. So I think another pun on better together, but it's the spend is up and the CPMs are higher, and it's everything Vinny kind of promised would happen, and we sold it through. So
we just got our first, and I'll be the first person to really tell you I don't love the media mix model at the end of the day, because it can create different ways of looking at it. But for the first time ever, we just got our results from 22. CPMs were up, impressions were down, spend was down, and we've never had higher ROIs. So when you think about it, it's like, okay, well, ROI is only meant if you get cheaper impressions, but it's not. It's the more effective output, which is driving top line revenue for our business. When you look at it that way, no matter the cost, if you're getting more people to buy your product, it shouldn't cost you less.
Yeah.
And you shouldn't look at it that way. So again, there's always that balance of the two sides of it, but when we were able to tell that story to our brand teams, to our business, it was the first time that we could say that we spent a lot less, through a lot of capacity challenges, but we drove a much higher effective outcome. And ROIs were up.
Yeah, and how many people in this room are faced with more uncertainty in 2023 and budgets that feel like they're not coming as easily, or they need a lot more justification behind them? And this is this interesting moment for this channel, and as you guys have both said, for the most impactful sight, sound, and motion format in all of advertising. And we're sitting here saying that maybe it's worth paying more. Yeah, and overall bringing some of the spend down or keeping spend sort of similar, which that has to be a little bit of an education process, right? Internally. So, you're not the first person who said in MMM readouts this year, there's a different dialogue about efficiency and efficacy than maybe ever before. So would you shed a little bit of light on that?
Yeah, again, it's the race to the bottom doesn't necessarily translate into actual business outcomes. And I think for years, I've tried to game the MMM system and said, okay, we can just buy $1.50 banners all day and get 1 billion impressions, and the ROI will probably go up. Just based on the way the model works. Now, again, the effectiveness is the key there. It's likely probably one of our lower mechanisms. Effectiveness is defined as the revenue due to media. So as we're goaled as a team, it's to drive top line revenue. So if you're not driving top line revenue, am I really bringing the value I'm supposed to be bringing to the business? It goes back to when you think about our business, we have to reach everybody. But if I'm buying in, for cheap reach or cheap scale, 75, give or take, % of our impressions are going to 6 or 7 US cities. Those cities are probably not the only ones buying my product.
Yeah.
In fact, they're probably less valuable in some areas.
Yep.
So when you think about effectiveness, again, that New York versus Topeka example, the Topeka person may be way more valuable, way more effective because they're driving top line revenue.
Yeah.
So how do you balance the equation with, you want to get reach, you still want to pay a balanced CPM, but you have to find those opportunities where it's actually going to be, in a way, our hunting grounds for business to turn over, to grow and to keep growing. And
and I'll bet your ROIs or I'll bet your results from linear are better as you even out and as
we
you
had
invest
our
more
highest
responsibly in
ROI
linear.
on linear this readout as well, because we streamlined our buy really well. We used the content that mattered. And as we talked about, it really shows a greater output. So it does work better together. You can't just turn it off.
So it sounds like Vinny's willing to pay more. And
I got some people in this audience that might yell at me for that one.
Vinny's going to get a lot of phone calls after this. And so Dan, you guys obviously, some of the most premium moments and live moments in the world happen in your family of networks. And so you talk a little bit about how biddable plays and the role that you see for that in the future as we get, obviously, part of the auction is not just the buy side driving it down, but the sell side being able to drive it up to justify the most premium moments. So you talk a little bit about how you foresee those very premium moments and this kind of buying.
Yeah, I think that there's going to be a continued pressure on fewer, bigger, better. We also look to take a portfolio approach and package all of our streaming endpoints together, bringing quality, scale, transparency, similar to the IQ product. Ours is called One Fox, so we got to do the plug. But the PMP mechanism, we look at it all the time internally around bid density and how much demand is there for these impressions, how much demand is there in the marketplace. And I think that's going to continue to be a tool we use, right, to use flexibility back on the sales side to say, we've got Hershey and we've got 6 other clients that all want to reach that same household in this piece of content. What are the CPMs and how is that competing? And competition is interesting, right? I mean, we have PMP buyers that are not as thrilled as Vinny are, that want to know why they couldn't get their money down, and it's, you didn't bid high enough and somebody came in and beat you for those impressions. So I think that there's a continued education around that as well. We're not trying to advise you incorrectly on what the marketplace and what the demand looks like within our walls, but allowing that programmatic advertiser to better compete alongside our direct advertisers, that's where we're at now. And that's not to say we're disrupting sponsorships, right? Like we've got stuff that's down and it's not going anywhere, but there is this new tier where we have more flexibility to let programmatic demand compete against the legacy business.
That's really cool. Thanks for sharing. It's cool to hear about how, for lack of IOs or fixed price guarantees, how you're evaluating bid density as a form of anticipating and having the assurance on your side that the buys will be there, that Vinny's demand will be there to meet the supply. Yeah. Well, I do feel like that's so much of what we're all going through is you're finding certainty in that moment. Well, great. I want to get into a little bit of, you talked about being a mass reach advertiser. I also know that you care a lot about the data that comes from retailers, and that many in your category think a lot about first-party data as well. So when you're a mass reach advertiser, what role does retail data and first-party data play for you in some of the equations you've laid out?
I mean, all of our products are sold at every retailer, so they are incredibly important. I think it goes back to, we look at first-party data in two ways. One, it's identity-based, which we don't have a lot of as a brand. So can we get first-party data and access through the retailers? But our first-party data is we actually have sales by SKU, by zip code, by every single brand and product that we sell in every single store. To me, that's a richer first-party data set than any ID spine could ever offer me, because I know exactly where to go.
Yep.
Where my business is either on shelf, off shelf, where our brand is underdeveloped and the category is overdeveloped. So we look at first-party data a bit differently in that sense. But as we've gotten more into retail media, it's how do you guys are obviously setting up one part of the DSP with Walmart. You've got audience-based PMPs with retailers. But at the end of the day, they're charging a lot more than other data sets. So you've got to perform 2, 3, 4 times better if you're going to charge that much more, especially for offsite media. So you have to think about it as audience extension and onsite. How do you win the digital shelf for a brand like us? It's a little bit harder.
Yep.
Our product doesn't ship well. It melts before it gets to your door. So that's a problem. So then if that's the case, how do you get them closest to point of purchase, click to collect, all that? But how does that data then inform us a richer outcome? So it is a fun area right now in a good way. Like there's a lot of learnings. They're learning as retailers just as much to be a media player as we're learning how to use retailers for media. But it's been an interesting journey that I think is going to keep getting better and better.
Yeah, so it sounds like some of what you're saying is that the retail, if you're lacking first-party data, or even if you have it, retailer point of sale data is an incredible asset to evaluate, as you said, the moments. How much value is there in this moment for me to show this ad at this moment? It's another incredible signal for you to do that. And you have to make sure the value equation's right. You have to make sure you're paying the right amount. Exactly. But here we are, able to target your past purchasers, your highest value customers on Dan's properties.
Correct.
Using that data, which is a new proposition.
Buyers and non-buyers for us is a home run.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I know we're coming up on time, so I'll move into the prediction section. We'll get out Samantha's crystal ball. And I'd love to hear you guys just think about, when you look ahead to 2024 and the future of upfronts and upfront deals. Vinny, what do you think about? What are you excited about?
I'm really most excited about the unknown, because I think there's not a lot of predictability in the marketplace right now. And if we were so comfortable with 60 plus years of a smaller household panel, and now we're trying to test all these new currencies. So to me, there's a lot of opportunity to learn and grow and roll our sleeves up as an industry and get better. But if we think the perfect outcome is going to come in the next 12 months, I think we're all going to be really disappointed by the end of it. It's just time to lean in and fix or make better, what we use as an industry currency for years. Yeah,
I couldn't agree with you more there. And it sounds like you're also saying it's up to us. We have to do that hard work.
We as an industry have to do it together.
Yeah. Dan, when you look at 2024, when you think about what you're seeing right now, what are you excited about? What are you thinking about?
I mean, it's the opportunity. I think that there's never been a time that the measurement challenges, the competition in alternative currencies, the streaming services, the boom of fast channels, right? So I think, again, 2024 is going to continue to be this rising tide where we'll then, hopefully that fewer, bigger, better comes back down. I think premium and transparency start to become bigger buzzwords. Not that they're not already, but a bigger requirement in this sort of supply path optimization. But I do think, again, there's so many different things that are on the table at the moment that this is really the year to shake things up, try things differently. So the opportunity in 2024 to get some stuff right and maybe some wrong, but hopefully
Celebrate more failures.
Yeah,
And
I love the way you guys wrap that up. Uncertainty, but also through the lens of opportunity. I couldn't agree more. So thank you guys so much. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, everybody.